Is that it, Bob? Anything else?
That's it.
All right, now we come on to old business, which I think is what's brought a lot of people out tonight. And I would just preface, without belaboring, it's people been here a while. This board, we canvass this board, and they're going to give you your comments after I give my brief comments. I'm going to make a motion. But there is no consensus. Well, actually, the only consensus on this board is in these times, which have been described as not ordinary times, there's no consensus to borrow $8.5 million, no matter whether it's for roads or anything else because of the economic outlook. There's no consensus. There is consensus, not consensus, there's about 3 or 4 different opinions. A couple of gentlemen would want to put it off till this next coming budget season to see what is coming in, and then they would include it either in the budget or some other fashion. Another gentleman wants to not bond it, but he wants to cut the next year's budget and the following year's budget by 5% and pay for it out of that fashion. Several other gentlemen don't want to go for that $8.5 million, but will be willing to go for a short-term borrowing with bond anticipation notes to cover $2 million, which is basically an expansion of what we passed last March, when we passed a bond issue which included $600,000 in roads on top of the $500,000 in the budget, which included a number of roads, in which somebody pointed out earlier, we did not include Aunt Patty's Lane, which was not our choice. We don't pick the roads. Board of Selectmen finds we don't pick any roads what's going to be good. It's not our purview. So there is some sympathy for doing that. But we don't want to tell the Board of Selectmen what to do. So I'm going to make the following motion, and it's not the table. And this is the motion. In lieu of the current poor economic conditions, both locally and statewide, and the anticipated further loss of state educational cost sharing and other revenue, the Bethel Board of Finance remands to the Bethel Board of Selectmen for further consideration and study their $8.5 million bond proposal for road repair. Do I have a second for that motion? Second. We have a second. Gentlemen, discussion if you wish to. Give your thoughts on this topic.
This has been an arduous process for everybody. We've looked at this project. I've looked at it. We had the numbers for about 6 to 7 weeks. And in the review that I did, I came up with a lot of issues pertaining to what the future is. The future being January of 2011, and we have a board presentation of all the town budgets and the Board of Education budget. And I don't want to sacrifice education for town roads, nor do I want to sacrifice town roads for education. I think everybody knows we need to do town roads. But I looked at it and I thought about it, and I realized that we have a major issue coming to us with the amount of state aid that we're going to lose in January. Plus, we have about a $700,000 increase in the salaries for the Board of Education under the contract that kicks in for the second year of it. Plus, on 1/11 of 11, Obamacare kicks in. My company, we found out today that Anthem, Blue Cross, and Blue Shield, they don't know what the charges are going to be. They think it's going to be 50 to 60% higher for health care. And they gave us what is the law of Obamacare, January 1 of 2011. And there's about 5 new things that are kicking in that we cannot control, and under law they have to be added. So I looked at that and I thought, well, gee, is this going to impact the town of Bethel? And I thought probably it will, because no matter what health care plan employees have, there are going to be federal mandates under the new law instituted by Obama. So I looked at all of that, and then I hear the argument, well, interest rates, you know, this is a primary time, and they're at their lowest point in history, and you've got to take advantage of them. And I looked at that and I thought, well, 2 months from now, the interest rates aren't going anywhere, because we have what's called QE2. QE2 is quantitative easing, which the Fed is now putting about $500 billion into the economy to buy back debt to keep interest rates low. So I would suspect in 2 months, when the Fed has done that, interest rates aren't going anywhere. They're going to be the same as they are now. And we will have an ability to look at the town budget and decide how much money we're going to lose from the state, how much the tax rate is going to be based upon the money we're gonna have to make up that the state has not been able to give us. There's gonna be no money from the Fed under these projects of stimulus packages. So when I thought about it, I said, well, gee, yeah, I'd love to pave every road in Bethel. That's not my job. My job is to watch for the taxpayer's dollar. My job is fiscal responsibility. I take it seriously. So I thought, okay, let's do a few roads, but let's wait. Let's wait till January. Let me see what the budget looks like, both on the town and the Board of Education side. And then we can say, gee, the asphalt plants aren't open now anyway. What is the rush that we can't wait another 6 weeks, whatever it might be, until we see what the budget looks like. And then we can decide, do it all, do half, do part, whatever. But that's my view on it, and that's why I'm in favor of this motion.
Yes, sir. Anyone else? Mr. Kingston.
I'm very concerned, as the chairman is, about the revenues for the town. I'm also concerned about the overall economy, and I think evidence for that is that the Fed saw fit to do the quantitative easing. They are uncertain about the economy. I also believe that the roads are now in such a state that they have come to the top of the priority list. With that in mind, we as a town have the resources in our highway department to essentially do eight or 9 miles of road a year, which would be approximately $2 million. If we were to bond $2 million, it would not impact the rate at which the roads are repaved. That would enable us to repave them at the maximum rate that the town could support with the personnel that we have. Therefore, I would propose that we bond $2 million funded by short-term notes and revisit this issue at this time next year when we have a clearer view of the economy. But meanwhile, we can prioritize the roads and go flat out to pave and repair the roads that are within our capability on a yearly basis. And that's what I would support.
Thank you, Mr. Kingston. Anybody else who wants to speak?
In addition to what Mr. Kingston said, there's still $500,000 put into the 240 account, the road account for construction. That would actually, if you went with the $2 million bonding, which I have a feeling it would be something that I may consider backing, would be $2.5 million. And on top of that $2.5 million, there's still $900,000 left over from the sewer project, from what I understand. That would bring it up to $3.4 million. Well, what is left then? Because that's what the board was led to understand over the past year from Mr. Morowski. What's left?
I can't give you that number yet, because it's in flux. When we reduced the road package by $900,000, because it's fair that would go in there. If the money's not there, then that's fewer miles that would be done. But I can't tell you that number because there are still easements being negotiated and being paid and some legal issues, quite frankly. So I can't give you that number, but part of it will be there. I can't guarantee, maybe all of it, but I can't guarantee.
Anyone else wish to speak up?
I don't think.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry, Tim. I thought you'd stopped there.
Well, I'm also concerned with the economy. I mean, I don't know what everybody else thinks, but according to the federal government and the state government, we're in recovery now. In my business, I don't feel like it. Most of the people I've talked to don't feel it either. So I'm a little leery on spending that much money at one time, but there's nothing that can be done pretty much from now until the asphalt plant's open up, from what I understand from highway department, which I talked to. Putting it off a few weeks is not going to change anything. I'll be the first one to say that roads need fixing, but I'm also, the problem lies in is paying for it and being fiscally responsible at these times. So, I just, it's not that we need more time to think about it, but there are things that are coming up down the road, you know, such as, you know, the police station and whatnot. You know, these are all things that we have to think about, and are we gonna get less money from the state? Or, you know, what are the raises gonna be for the town employees? You know, all these things, we have to take that into consideration for us to make an informed decision on this. So, I don't know, that's where we are, that's where I am right about now.
Thank you. Mr. Slifkin, you want to say something?
Yeah, I'd like to raise two issues, if I may. The first one is about the 900,000 that, more or less, that is left in the Stony Hill sewer project that you referred to at a prior meeting. Why wasn't that explained to all the people in Stony Hill, and why didn't we spend that money to fix the roads in Stony Hill?
I can't.
And the other one is, I personally take exception to your email that you sent out requiring everybody to come from the Democratic Town Committee tonight. And here's a copy of it that you sent out with your signature.
Okay.
I take exception to it.
All right, that's not really germane to the question here.
No, the other one is, we are in dire economic times. You've got the schools that are looking at being refurbished, the 2 elementary schools, you've got the police station, you've got everything that we have to look at. Everybody on this board realizes that we need to fix the roads. That is not the issue. The issue is, how do we pay for it, and how much do we allocate in the next fiscal year? And that's why I would like to send it back to them to see what they would do.
Anyone else wish to?
Yeah, I just want to add one additional comment. I just thought of it. We received a CCM report, conference of whatever it is.
Conference of Connecticut Municipalities, in which we are a dues-paying member.
We received a report, and according to the report we received, which was about 10 pages to 12 pages thick, the state, the CCM, has come out unequivocally and said there are 4 cities in the state of Connecticut that are in dire need of money: Waterbury, Hartford, New Haven, and Bridgeport. And those 4 are going to take most of the state money in the next 2 or 3 years. And they talked about the reasons why. So if the state has a financial problem and the big cities are the ones that are going to be receiving those funds, you can think of what's going to happen to Bethel and other smaller towns. We're going to lose money.
Yes, but I want to see if anybody wants to comment on a motion, and we can entertain your time. Anyone else want to talk on the motion to remand back to the Board of Selectmen? Yes, go ahead.
There are a couple of things I want to review before you vote on this motion. I'm going to tell you right now, I hope this motion is defeated and that you continue deliberating tonight. But I want to first address the timeline. I think there might be some misunderstanding. There's certainly some misinformation discussed tonight, and you guys may be well aware of what the actual numbers are, but I want to review it just to make sure. First of all, this plan was presented formally in June, beginning of June, at a joint meeting of the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance. The Board of Selectmen didn't vote on it that night, and we said we weren't going to vote on it. We presented it to you with Mr. Bernabe from the bank here, with Mr. Kozlowski, with Mr. Morosky, the town engineer, for the purpose of presenting it to you and then giving you time to deliberate on it. We then went through the summer months. We had a public information session. We invited people to come and ask questions about it. I want to thank Mr. Draper, who, to the best of my knowledge, I think, Phil, you were at the meeting for a short period of time and then you left. Mr. Draper stayed for the whole meeting so he could hear what people had to say and hear how it would be paid for. I had the bank present 3 different bonding scenarios, all of which still allow the total debt load to fall. Not adjusted for inflation, not adjusted for budget increases, whatever they may be, it falls in all 3 of the scenarios. So I think Mr. Gallagher's timeline was right. The Board of Selectmen finally finalized that number in early September, but the intent was to keep you gentlemen informed at every step of the way so that you wouldn't need a long deliberation process, you would be ready to go with your questions. And we've had several meetings since then. I have Mr. Dibble here tonight if you have any more questions about the number of miles that could be done or whatever. The number of 900,000 in this year's budget is thrown around. That is not correct. The number is 500,000. It is predominantly spent at this time. Just to refresh your memory.
Wasn't isn't the 900,000 that they're talking about the money in the Stony Hill sewer?
I'm
500,000, we know what the 500,000 is this year.
Okay, well,
And we put it there.
if you want to report on the 900,000 and how that's calculated, that's an offset that Barry Carina calculated. And just to make sure that people understand this, if you cannot assess homeowners for road repair that the town is responsible for anyway. You can't do that. So when people say that the Stony Hill roads were cut up and for the sewers, and that there was no plan to put them in place, that's not exactly true. It's just that you can't make that part of the sewer project, but what you can do is prorate the amount that the sewer project pays for about the 18-inch wide strip that they did to lay the sewer pipe. And that's what that 900,000 offset represents. Now, the sewer project is in flux. It's several years behind schedule. There are cost overruns, mostly because of easements and material prices going up through those years. That has to be addressed by the Public Utilities Commission at a separate time. But let me go back to the 500,000 that was in this year's budget. And the fact that we're sitting here in November and the plants are closing. Why do we do it that way? Well, it is true that our crews can only do a certain number of miles per year. Now, when you go through the budget process in the spring, and we had a town meeting and a referendum in May, budgets were approved, including that 500,000, but you can't touch that money. You can't get started until July 1. So we've done this year everything we can do. There's still some projects in process right now that Bob Dibble is working on, but that's the best we can do. Therefore, it was my decision to hold off this process till now to give everybody on this board full opportunity to study it and to look at the different payment plans, different options, so that we would be ready in the spring. So we really need to have, I did not create an emergency out of this. I just want to make that very clear. I have not used that word. I have shepherded this thing along to the point where we can have a referendum before the holidays, before the Christmas holidays, so that I can prepare, along with Mr. Kozlowski, a capital budget. If you read your charter, you know that capital plans have to be submitted to my office by November 30th, and I have to have them to you by January 30th. And whether or not the voters are going to approve this plan has everything to do with what I present to you in January. And by the way, the state isn't going to know any more in January than they know now. I had a meeting with Dr. Chesley today, and he's in a quandary on how to build his budget because he's going to go to you guys in March not knowing what the final numbers are going to be. It's that way every year. So there's no advantage to waiting on this thing. Now let me make a couple other comments about this. Some of our speakers tonight talked about the schools. The high school went from 25 million to 32 million. That's true. The library is not finished because the cost of that went up. Let me talk about two schools, as a matter of fact, Barry Elementary School and the high school. And what I'm trying to do, and I understand that there's some uncertainty in the economy, but I also understand that the longer you put off the roads, the worse they get and the more expensive they get. Things don't get cheaper. The fact is that the first request to do a study to update Barry Elementary School in the minutes was presented in 1980. And we didn't do that project until 2001. The first request from the old permanent site, or permanent building committee to renovate Bethel High School was 1992. Now, think of what happened. We put those off, we put those off, we put those off, we put those off, until like an accordion. These things collapsed and they came back to back. And then we put off Bethel High again. The administration at that time chose not to let the people decide, chose not to send it to a referendum. So the price tag that was 25 million went up to 32 million. And what we got was 7 million more debt to the town and 10,000 square feet less. And what I'm asking you is to break that pattern. The best run municipalities in this state don't have this unrealistic idea that we can put things off and that things are going to get better. I haven't heard anybody tell me what your criteria is for how much better it needs to be before we do this. What I'm suggesting is we manage our debt to keep it below where it is now, and we can fix these things. We realistically tell ourselves, we know that Rockwell School is going to need updating. We know we need a police station. But let's not push this back into it and we have that accordion collapse and all these things become a political hotbed all at one time. That's what we've done since I moved to town 35 years ago. It's the same method. I'm suggesting that we take debt. Debt is not good and it's not bad. It's a tool. You use it wisely. And we're in a good position to take advantage of the low interest rates and the low prices to do this. And one more thing. There seems to be some confusion about what a bid is versus what an estimate is. This project will go out to bid. It will probably go out to multiple bids. And it will probably, almost certainly, come in lower than the 8.5 million when it happens. And just to give you the example, the speaker tonight talked about the old Hollyville Road project. The federal government gives us the rules and regulations and bid specs that we have to use. And according to that, that was advertised to the community of contractors as an $870,000 project. And you guys remember where the bid came in? A little over $400,000. With some of the extra work, the drainage work, it's going to be a little bit of, like a $550,000 project. So I don't think we're going to see a decrease that drastic because we're not tied to the government specs. And by the way, there is a DOT engineer on site supervising that project, just in case anybody wanted to know about that. So I'm asking, you know, an $8.5 million project spread over 4 years is about a hair over $2 million a year. If that's your number, then at least do the one year, because if you push this into the spring, we're going to be right back where we were this year, doing nothing. Nobody here will have a road fixed until the end of July or 1st of August next year, and that's not acceptable. We have to start addressing this. They just get worse. Thank you.
Point of clarification, is the $900,000 in your plan or not?
It is.
Okay.
It's shown as an offset.
So we have a $900,000 offset?
Yes.
Okay, and you're saying on record tonight? Like,
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. That's one reason why the
No, I didn't understand before because you were talking about it and it confused me. So I don't
That's
know.
one reason why the final number was brought down from 10 million to 8.5. That's not all of it, but that's part of it. Part of it was just squeaking down the numbers.
Anyone else? Just a couple of observations and comments on the timeline. This board, we did have a meeting with your Board of Selectmen June 1st, but that was an informational meeting with, and also the figure at that point in time was $10 million.
Correct.
And you did have the public hearing in May, which I did attend. It was very sparsely attended. There was more people, probably 2 or 3 times as people here tonight as was at that public hearing. Which was a hot night, so I can understand why people didn't come out. And then we did get the presentation finally in September 21st at $8.5 million. So, and as I said earlier, this board wants to deliberate. Now, you mentioned that the $500,000 could not be used until July 1st, but this board, and I want to speak in defense of this board voted to put $600,000 up for referendum, which would have been freed up either May 7th or 8th, whenever the referendum, if it had passed. And that would have been taking care of roads for this year. That would have been $1,100,000. That money did not have to wait till July 1st. It was available as soon as the referendum passed. So I think that's in defense of this board. We were cognizant of the roads. We listened to the advice of Mr. Carino, who advised us on that in the spring. So, you know, this entire talking point. Now, we are remanding this back to you. We don't want to tell you what to do. And we would hope that this Board of Selectmen would get back to us as soon as possible. You've heard some of the options that people have mentioned. The 2-year, you mentioned in your proposal earlier, that if you got the 8.5 million in bonds, because you only can do 2 million a year, that you would not spend as much. You know, you wouldn't spend it if the income wasn't coming in. But it's a feeling, my feeling as chairman of the board, and I think others may share it, that discretionary power belongs to the Board of Finance, not the Board of Selectmen.
I agree.
So
I agree.
But by passing the bond issue, then we're not knowing whether the money's gonna be spent. That is not the scenario that I can buy. But you have, but the members I gave you the scenarios that I hope you would take back to your board to consider. There is, let me finish now, there is support for a $2 million bond for the first year's work. And if the bids come in like they did for Chestnut Ridge, where they say 20%, maybe more can be done. But I would hope you would consider what this motion, what this board has said tonight.
I have a request for you then. You know, remanding it back to the Board of Selectmen means what? We get to throw numbers out to see if you're satisfied. If 2 million is the number you want to go with for 1 year, then I would like to vote on that, so I know what to do.
I think legally, we need a formal request for that amount.
No, you don't.
Yes, you do.
You can.
And we have to meet again in December.
That is unacceptable. That is unacceptable. You can offer an alternative, and then we can vote to accept it.
But I think the position is it's not our job to offer you an alternative.
Well, you've taken on the job
You
anyway.
have to present us with a plan.
You have a plan. You have a plan. You can, I'm asking this board to, if 2 million is the number you want to go with for year 1, you make that, and I will take that back to the Board of Selectmen, and I will ask them to approve it. But I do not want to go back and just say, well, let's try 2 million and see if they like that. This has gone on long enough. We need to have a referendum, and this is the time to do it. So, Mr. Chairman, I'm asking you for your vote.
We have a motion on the floor to remand the question back to your board. I'm going to ask for a vote on that.
I will hope that your members vote it down so they can put a motion on the floor to.
What is the decision of this board on the question of remanding it back to the Board of Selectmen? They have had our input, and it's possible for them to get back to us very quickly. All in favor of the motion to remand signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
So there's, how many in favor? 4 in favor? How many opposed? 3 opposed. Okay, you have the vote.
Will you at least take a vote tonight on as a recommendation? So I
would take a vote, an advisory vote to send to the Board of Finance, which I thought about doing, but I want to be very careful with it because with this unusual for a bond issue to be altered. I have never seen, can I tell you, I have never seen a bond issue, I've never seen a bond proposal come from the Board of Selectmen to the Board of Finance in all the years that I've done this where it was altered by the Board of Finance. They either vote on the proposal that the Board of Selectmen sends to them or they turn it down. As I said, these are not ordinary times. So I would entertain an advisory vote which has no binding, and you can take that back, sure. Does anyone wish to make an advisory vote?
Now, I advise we recommend a bond issue of $2 million.
Anybody second that?
Can I add to that, Mr. Kingston?
Sure, if you have a...
Yeah. Basically, the way I would say it, I would agree to the $2 million
Well, wait a
short
minute.
term.
If you're going to amend his motion,
Yeah.
you're going to have to get a second first, and then we're going to...
Okay.
All right. Do we have a second for his motion? Mr. Regan seconds. Go ahead.
What I would agree to is $2 million short-term bond, plus keep the $500,000 in the 240 road account. Then the following year, which would be for the 2012-2013. So I know the $500,000 is not going to start until July 1st, 2011, but there's still $2 million to start the program. Follow me?
I'm not sure. Yeah.
Okay. If we're gonna bond $2 million, the $2 million will start at our next meeting, okay? If we decide to do it, okay?
No, it would start when it was voted on in the referendum.
When it's approved.
Yeah, well, once we went to it and it went to referendum, correct, okay? So, once it got that far, there would be, when the plants basically open in the springtime, the town will be ready to go. Plus, there's still the $500,000 that can be used for the 2011, 2012 budget season, okay? So that is actually $2.5 million. That's a little bit more than a quarter of what the selectmen's road package is, okay? Then, I would like to, at the same time, in January of 2011, January, February, we will see better numbers, new budget will be out, and we're gonna see kind of how the economy is doing at the same time. And that's gonna give us a better informed decision for the following year. I would per se, see doing it, bonding the $2+ million every year. And and this goes back to what you had said, Phil, was I have a hard time giving the Board of Selectmen authority to spend $8.5 million at your discretion. Not to say, no, don't take it personally, no. It's a Board of Finance thing. If the economy goes totally worse than it was 2 years ago, the Board of Selectmen, whoever's in the Board of Selectmen can make that decision whether you're gonna spend the money or not, or defer it the following year or right down the road. That's what I'm nervous about.
I don't know how many times I've said that the financing of this is up to the Board of Finance. That's why I presented 4 different scenarios.
But what, are we not gonna give you, the Board of Finance, the control?
I think what he's talking is, Knickerbocker, what he's saying is, in one of your presentations, you said, and I've raised the question all along, right back to the informational meeting in the end of May, or June 1st, I think it was, that I'm afraid about the ECS point. I raised that point all along. And so I think what he's talking about is that you and I, in reference to in answer to when I raised the point, you said, well, if we don't need the $8 million, we won't spend it all at once, but we might spread it out beyond the 4 years. So that's where he,
No.
that's what you did say.
No, I did not. If there was a misunderstanding,
Well, please clarify what you meant.
4-year project, period. And what I said was, it could potentially be far less than $8.5 million when the bids come out.
No, I thought you said that, I hate to put words in your mouth, but you said if times get tough and we don't get the ECS money, then we won't spend all the bond issue, that's what you said.
What I said was the Board of Finance could suspend spending on the program.
Now, once the bond issue is approved, it's out of our hands.
Well,
See, that's
Okay.
kind of the point.
all right, so if you want to do it year at a
I'm
time,
kind of nervous about that point.
okay?
What I'm envisioning is not changing anything on the ground. The exact amount of pavement would be laid next year as if
Yes.
we had passed the $8.5 million. So
Correct.
nothing on the ground would be affected. This time next year, we would have an idea where the economy is, what kind of money we're getting from the state, and a much better handle on it. And we may, at that point, very well want to go bond $6.5 million. Or we may want to bond a further $2 million on a year-by-year basis, or say we can't afford any of it now. But I think that decision would be well made next year at this time. And if we do pass the $2 million bond issue, we could get going on the pavement, get the worst roads started to be paved, and not change anything on the ground.
If I could ask
Retain
you,
our options.
if I could ask you, I mean, do you have an issue with waiting until January till we see the budget numbers?
I do.
To propose that?
Right, for the reasons that Mr. Knickerbocker outlined.
Can I ask you a point? Just a quick
Sure.
question off the top of your head.
Sure.
You have any idea what your budget's looking like for January? Have you done that preliminaries?
No, I know that we have, Bob and I have been working on some savings in some area, in quite a few areas. I don't know, we have 2 units, 2 bargaining units coming up next year. We have 2 in process right now. I'm not gonna talk about those except in executive session, but I will give you guys an update, but I'm optimistic about the budget next year. If you look at what drove the budget on the town side last year, there were two big items, utilities and pensions. And we've amortized the utilities. There's no increase in fire protection. So you're gonna have probably a level budget there. There was a big, I think that increase alone was $500,000. And then there was a $600,000 increase in pensions, because in the pension year before, I'm gonna say this again because there's so much misunderstanding. In the plan year from July 1, 08 to June 30th, 09, there was a shortfall in the pension versus an expectation that the pension fund would grow. Now, this year, we're looking at growth that was on target. So any increase in the pension, if it's there, is going to be minuscule. So right off the bat, I'm looking at maybe a little bit less than $1 million of new spending from last year that won't have to go into this budget. And then we're doing some other things. We're making some changes in our IT operation to save money, which I'll give you guys a report when I have numbers. But I'm optimistic. I think it's going to be amazing. Now, let me, if you don't mind, let me make one comment about Mr. Draper's proposed amendment. I like the spirit of it, but I would caution you guys not to lock in the $500,000 that appears in the road budget every year. One of the advantages of following this plan is that if the sky falls in and ECS is slashed, you have some flexibility in that budget. Maybe you make it $100,000 or $200,000 in the operating budget. But if we can easily keep the $500,000 in, I'm with you, because at the end of this 4-year period, when we get 31 miles of roads done, you still have to have a budget that keeps us going and we don't find ourselves ever in this position again. So I'm with you. I like that idea, but I would suggest that you not put it into a motion.
Well, you
took
the words out of my mouth, because I remember what you had to say when you proposed this, that account could be used to offset whatever the bond issue is. So,
yes.
and we have to go back to the fact that $2 million is about what the highway department can handle in a year, because they save us money by doing the drainage. You know, if you went for more money and did $4 million in a year, you wouldn't have the same savings that the highway department provides. Plus, you tie up half the town with road construction. So that's a consideration.
Can I ask you?
Go ahead, sure.
Bob?
Yeah.
Where do we stand on fuel? Are we plus, minus, how are we doing?
We're doing pretty well, because we locked in back in, I guess, May timeframe, and I think we got somewhere around $1.75 a gallon. So we're doing okay with that.
And gasoline too?
Yep.
Well, we have an advisory question, and
Yes.
the amount of $2 million is the number I am prepared to support. But as I said earlier, I want to make sure all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. And I have never seen a bond issue come before the Board of Finance where they altered the number proposed by the Board of Selectmen. Now, in my history of Bethel, I've been sat in 18, 20 years on different boards. So I want to see a formal adoption of that number to come back to from the Board of Selectmen to the Board of Finance. And if this advisory question, and it's only advice, it's not an answer to the proposal, because that's what we already have a motion on that. If that comes back, and if this motion passes, then it will come in a short time. But we're not at a fire sale, in the sense that people have to remember that they can't start paving the roads until spring. So, and also, as far as your budget, preparing your budget, people have to remember the last say on the budget, whether it's capitalized or anything, comes from this board in the middle of April. So that's another consideration. There's no rush because of budget preparations in January, because it can be changed anywhere along the way by this board, or you're proposed differently by your board. So those are all considerations that we should be aware of it.
We're going to go to
Yes.
roads too, so we know what we can plan everything out. We need to plan out where we go.
So I'm going to ask you once again, this is the way you want to do it. I will convene a special meeting of the Board of Selectmen, but I would like a commitment from this board to have a special meeting at the earliest possible convenience, because this needs to go to a referendum before the Christmas holidays. to meet that schedule.
Pardon? Well, we'll try I can't speak for only myself, but I'm gonna try the motion on the advisory motion. Wendy, would you read my
No,
advisory?
actually, Tim's got an amendment
All right,
on here,
go
so
ahead,
that's
Ted.
either
I
has
don't
to
even
be.
remember, how was the regular motion? read?
Well, it was the
Was
2
there so much
million, well,
discussion?
Phil has the original one that remanded to the Board of Selectmen. Now, you wanted to include the 500,000 for the upcoming 2011, 2012?
Well, you know,
budget with that.
I'll take the 500,000 back out of that,
Okay, so you're gonna withdraw your,
my motion for that.
and then you.
I will show you.
All right, so this is an advisory motion made by Mr. Kingston and I think seconded by Gary Regan, and which would, or you second, I don't know who seconded it, but I guess one or the other. And it reads that it would be the position of this board if the Board of Selectmen requested a 2 million short-term, I think we should include, you want to finance that by bond anticipation notes, correct?
Which I'm unsure of at this point, whatever is the cheapest method.
Well, that would be my preference.
Okay,
Because that way,
certainly go along with that.
that's been my preference all along. I mentioned that at an earlier meeting, but it didn't seem to fly at the earlier meeting, that we go a year at a time. But
Bill?
I would want, yes,
Just keep in mind, I mean, right now, the short-term notes are about 0.5%.
yeah,
In a year or 2 years from now, it may not be 0.5%. If the Fed does what it's gonna do in
Yeah.
January, I mean, the result of that could be inflation, and the rates could
yeah.
rise.
But then, well, then you can switch to longer term, right?
Mhm, mhm. But then the longer, right
Yeah.
now, if you went for 8 years,
Right,
I think it's running around 1.75, 2%.
right.
So that would be also higher as well.
Mhm.
So, it's a gamble, but I just want to throw that out.
Yeah. So you want to include in your motion financing, or no? This is only advisory, so it's not written in stone anyway.
Yes, short-term notes.
Okay. His motion is, it's a sense of the Board of Finance that they would support a short-term bond anticipation notes for $2 million for road repair. Is that it? Anybody have any more discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It's 5, the vote is 5 to 2. All right, the next item on our agenda is
That's my cue, man.